Great. Thank you, Dory.
So I think it is recording to my computer, so I'll save the file when we come off. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep. Lovely.
Okay. So I'm just using 4 slides and trying to stick to the brief, but please ask questions afterwards. So this probably won't take 10 minutes. What I've done in slide 1 is simply depict what my thoughts were and the plans 3 months ago when the project started. So I've got April, May, June, July, August, September. So having relocated back to Scotland from New Zealand, where I was the last 15 years, I'd been doing a briefing for colleagues in Auckland Council on national park cities, and this led me to kind of wonder what this concept might mean for literally my back garden. So what I was trying to do was piggyback the work that I was involved in and this particular pathway to sustainability. So the motivation centered very much on reconnecting with the community and with the garden and the streets and the neighborhood and applying the SDGs. So I've just signaled the SDGs there that I'm focusing on. I divided the months into 3 sections: researching national park cities, then thinking about scaling down to the back garden level, and then August, September would be trying to make sense and evaluate what I've been doing. And it's not letting me, actually what I might have to do, that's it. So this slide, it's very texty, so I do apologize for that. But the blue text summarizes on the left what a national park city is. Just stick your hand up if you've heard of the concept before, and if you know of any cities who are national park cities. Great. Auckland was thinking about it, and I was contracted by Māori colleagues to actually do a little briefing note on what it might mean for Ngāti Whātua, who are the main iwi in Auckland, and what are the things that they might be asking, what are the questions you might be asking. So the idea is based on the national parks, but to try and apply the concepts to a city in terms of helping people to connect with nature, culture and heritage, think about preservation and conservation, and thinking about how we could actually link the green spaces in the city and create something pretty spectacular. So the black text, when you try and apply this to a little back garden, it's kind of interesting. So I started to think about what are the things that are important about a back garden, and things like privacy, access from, proximity to the house, ability, ownership, giving ability to change. So I've got more control over my little back garden than I might do for a public space. I was thinking about preserving what needs to be preserved and conserving others. And I'm not an ecologist or a landscape architect, so I know I was starting from zero knowledge. So one of my first steps was to find out what contribution the trees that were in the garden actually made to carbon capture. And I haven't even started to do a little survey of animals and insects. So the first step was just to think about the trees themselves. And so I went digging on the internet and came across this little website, which actually you can do some interesting little calculations on how much CO2 does a tree absorb. So scaling down to the garden level, what I wanted to do was actually appreciate what there is, identify what trees there were, and using this little website to just try and get a sense of what contribution the trees were actually making. So they're all relatively young. The little website allows you to just tot up the number of trees that have a girth of a certain diameter, and then based on the number of trees, it'll tell you things like, you know, how much oxygen is produced, how much carbon stored, how many gallons of water are evaporated, and so on. At the moment, this doesn't really make sense to me because I'm not an ecologist. So part of the learning over the next month will be trying to make sense of the figures. So I make no claim to actually understand what the figures mean at the moment. And so this project is kind of, I've just taken it one step at a time. Whatever leads from one aspect to another, I'm not really too worried. I'm taking things in the spirit of the project. Pathway to Sustainability simply lends itself to continuous learning. The motivation for me is right in front of me. It's in the back garden. So far, I've met lots of people already online and face-to-face. It's enabled me to connect with local green groups and ecology groups. We've had the Chelsea Flower Show, which has been amazing this year, actually. So it's been lovely to kind of see what's been happening there. The Royal Horticultural Society also has information on gardening for climate change. And the Wildlife Trust has some great ideas as well. I was looking back at the diary that I was creating for myself back in May, and I promised myself I would make contact with the biodiversity officer at Argyll and Bute Council. And I actually got the email off this morning, and I was obviously prompted by tonight's meeting to do that. So it'll be really interesting if I hear back from her. And actually, that's all I've got to say at the moment. I found that the prompts on LinkedIn have simply enabled me to take the next step on the project. And depending on how the house is going, the renos are going, and what the weather is like, I'll just explore whatever's happening, either in the local area or in the local town, or follow up what's happening in the national media and so on. So it's been good fun, actually. Thanks very much.
That's a nice assessment. Good fun. Great. Well, you were... Sorry.
Do you want me to stop sharing?
Well, let's just check if there are any questions that need the particular slide up. Did anybody have anything specific? No, it sounds like that was, from what I can judge, it sounds as though it was all very clear what you were trying to communicate. So maybe you can stop. Oh, Norman, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I have a question, but it's not to do with the slide. So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Dory, we've got a guy who lives locally, and he's turned his garden into a nature reserve. And I've been there twice now, and I'm so impressed with what he's done. But he makes the point that his garden isn't in isolation from his neighbours' gardens. And I just wondered to what extent you, in your project, are considering the sort of connectivity between adjacent gardens, because wildlife just wanders in and out, doesn't it, or flies in and out, and is not too concerned about, you know, boundaries.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very conscious of that. The little back garden is walled, and the wall's about 5 feet high. So even to kind of chat to the neighbours over the fence, you need to stand on a little box. There are 1 or 2 very mature trees in the house immediately behind, and the garden actually benefits from that. There's probably more prospect for collaborating with neighbours in the front, because like many times we've got little green patches or berms, they used to be called in Auckland, which do tend to get mown a lot, whereas I did take advantage of not doing anything in the back garden during No Mow May. Just continued that, actually, and I find that the garden's going to dictate where the little paths want to go. So there's a little shed at the back of the garden, and I'm just going to kind of just let the little path evolve. But in answer to your question about neighbours, it's not so easy, actually, at the moment. what I haven't done is just, I haven't had an opportunity because we haven't been living in the house to chat to the neighbours to find out what their garden's like and what approach they actually take. But that's something that's going to be easier to do from probably the end of July when we actually move in.
That sounds great. And yes, I was struck when you were talking about how it sounds like you're taking opportunities as they arise and fitting things around commitments. And that seems quite a natural, kind of organic way to do something rather than kind of project management, which can be seen in much more like straight lines, which maybe aren't very natural. So
yeah, and to be honest,
Okay.
if it was the only way that I could get involved in this particular project, so I really wanted to connect with everybody and get involved in the project, and I thought I've just got to make this fit with what I'm doing and the way things are evolving very
Yeah.
organically, actually. But it's been good doing that.
yes, that's great. Well, thank you. Any other thoughts? Well, I think we'll come back to it, Dory. I'm sure we'll be
Yeah.
referring to Glyn, you're signalling.
Dory, thank you for that, because I was thinking as you were going through about the trees, it's very interesting. There is quite an overlap, surprisingly, in some of the things you will recognise. When I go through mine, but I think I've been recently working with botanists. No, I'm not a botanist, and I've learned an awful lot from them. And one of the things is how much is native and how much is non-native, and those are quite important issues in terms of sustainability, etc.
Yeah.
And even in and you will know from your experience in New Zealand that some imported plants don't carry, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But really, really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, the foxglove, for instance, is a weed in New Zealand. And although it features lots of postcards, New Zealanders need to get rid of it. Whereas here, of course, it's sought after.
Yes, and you can see, hasn't the RHS redefined what a weed is? I think it's becoming a more broad. One of them, it may not have been the RHS, but one of them was just saying it was a very resilient plant. That's a weed.
But the definition of a weed is a plant in the wrong place.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, thank you.
The wrong place for us, not for the plant.
Yes, of course. We should probably move on now, Glyn, to your presentation.
Norman, can I just try sharing my screen, or will it not allow me?
I'm going to make you a host, Glyn, so
Yeah.
you can share your screen.
But can you continue to record?
Have you got the record button?
Yes.
I think it's still showing red, isn't it?
Yeah, probably because do you want me to stop recording?
No, you carry on recording.
Yes, that sounds good.
The only reason I mention that is because the actual sendability of it, you may be more digitally enhanced in your knowledge base, Dory, than I am. And I was going to make a very bad joke about foxgloves. So digitalisly.
Yes. Yes, good one.